Today, we're going to talk primarily about the Google Fit app, which is on your phone. I wanted to do that just because I know not everybody has a watch. A lot of us have phones, so I figured that was the easiest way to talk about it. We're talking about counting your steps. Walking is a really good way to improve your health, and it's an accessible way. If you can walk, if you are able to walk, then it's an easy way to do something that doesn't require a lot of equipment. It can be part of your daily life. I wanted to note too, as we start this, if you are somebody who has any sort of disability or limitations on how much you can walk, on walking at all, it's always good to have active movement. Maybe talk to your doctor about what kind of movement is good for you. And also too, if you are limited in your ability to walk, know that you can set whatever goal you need to set that you think will work for you. So the goals we're talking about today are ballparks. Anything is good. And walking with like a walker or a cane, all of that still counts. So I just want to say that up front, that this is all adjustable to your particular needs. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so we're going to talk about the health benefits of walking, even if you're just adding, not that many more steps to your day. There's the benefits grow even with small amounts of additions of steps. So we'll talk about that. And also we're going to talk, like I said, about how to use the Google Fit app to count your steps and to challenge yourself to walk a little more. Again, we're using the Google Fit app because you can use it with your phone. And I figured it was sort of universal for all of us. Not all of us have Fitbits or watches or that will count our steps. But I think everybody with an Android or iPhone can download the Google Fit app and use it on their phone. Okay, well, first let's talk about what the general benefits are of walking. The National Institute of Health has listed these plus more benefits, but these are the big ones. So lowering your risk of high blood pressure, heart disease, and diabetes. So big three lowers those. Strengthen your bones and muscles, which can be a really important thing as you age, but especially as you age. Help you maintain a healthy weight, improve your mood, and contribute to longer life. A lot of really clear and scientifically proven benefits to walking on a regular basis. Okay, so this was the information that I found really interesting, and it was sort of what prompted me to do this particular TED Talk. It was actually multiple studies that were written up about in the Washington Post about how many steps you need to get a day to reap some of these benefits, right? The levels aren't as high as I thought. So I think it's really good to say, whatever you can add is going to help reduce your risk of some of these diseases and also to increase your longevity and decrease your risk of dying from other causes. So recent research has said that taking just 2,300 steps a day can reduce your risk of cardiovascular disease. Just 2,300. Generally, if you're walking around, if you're moving a good amount, either inside or outside, that's within the realm of attainable, right? It's a little bit less than some of the targets that we've been told about in the past. That's great. But then if you get up to 4,000 steps per day, the risk of death from any cause falls significantly for you. And then each additional 1,000 steps that you can add to that, and this is on a regular basis, it's not just one day, it's on a regular basis. It's like the additional 1,000 steps, so if you're doing 5,000 steps, your risk of death is going to lower by 15% for every additional 1,000 steps you do. So that's pretty substantial. And even if you add 500 steps, that can reduce your risk of death from cardiovascular disease by 7%. You don't have to, walk for 10 miles every day to get these great benefits from walking. You can just add a little bit to your routine and it'll make a big difference. The other good thing I wanted to point out here too is that none of this is reliant on speed. You don't have to walk at any speed for you to get these benefits from walking. Of course, speed and intensity can do other things for your body. There can be its own rewards for that, but these are all just based on the fact that you got that many steps in a day. It doesn't say you got that many steps in 10 minutes or an hour or anything like that. You just accrued them over the course of a day. So if you need to do them in increments, if you need to do them slowly, that's fine. You're still getting benefit. I think that's important. Also, counting steps can be a relatively simple and straightforward way to track your activity level. A lot of times we hear things like you should be getting, 100 and whatever minutes of exercise per week, and that can be hard to track, especially if you're getting moderate exercise in between activities, like you're doing chores at home maybe, or you're running an errand. You might not be thinking of that as exercise, but if you're thinking of it in terms of steps, then you'll see that you actually are active in these moments. So I think it can be really motivating and rewarding in that way to show you that you're actually already moving in your daily life. And once you know how many steps you have, you can look at that over time and start adding a little bit until you get to the goal that you want to be doing every day. Okay, so here's how we counter steps using the Google Fit app. All this takes to do is your phone and the App Store or the Play Store, depending on whether you have Android or an iPhone. And the one thing to keep in mind about this is you need to have your phone on you in order for your steps to be counted. So in a pocket, in your hands, in a bag that you're carrying, like if you are indoors and you're doing chores or something, or you're walking around your apartment, just, put your phone in your pocket and your steps will get counted. When you go out, most of us do take our phones, so you'll have it on you if you're outside, and your steps should get counted then. Okay, so as with any new app, we're going to go to the Play Store or the App Store, depending on whether you have Android or iPhone, and the steps will be very similar to what we did before. I mean, my example's on Android, but it's very similar on iPhone. So you're going to go to the store, you're going to look up Google Fit, and you should see this icon that looks, like a multicolored heart. So you're going to say install, and once the install wheel has stopped going around, it'll say open. And go ahead and click open when it says that. If you do have a Google account, then it'll come up here at the bottom of the screen and just say, do you want to use this Google account to access Google Fit? If you have multiple accounts, just use the one that you think you'd be most likely to have up and running on your phone. If you don't have a Google account, I think they will prompt you to get one here, and it's a relatively simple process. Okay, so say continue as your name, and then it's going to ask you a couple of questions so that it can get a sense of what your goals might be, what sort of tips they might give you. They give you these sort of like tips for getting more active or, doing health related things. So that's why they're asking about gender, birthday, weight, height. Some of the height has to do with how large your steps are as well. I'm not sure exactly how that works, but I know that it factors in there some sort of way. So it's going to ask you these questions. And if you can answer them however you would like, but the more accurately you answer them, the more accurately probably your steps will be tracked, and the tips and advice you get from the app will be tailored to you. Okay, I just wanted to show you this for multiple reasons. One, just to give you a sense of what these questions look like. Also because I think it's cool because they ask for gender, and you can say female, male, or rather not say. You can add a custom gender. None of those fit you, so it's very inclusive in that way, which I like a lot. Another thing to make sure about here, and this is going to be asked on all the questions, so like weight, height, and all that stuff, who can see this. So if you don't want this information shared with anybody through your Google account, I'm not even sure exactly in what context they would see it, but just to make sure it's private for you, just make sure it's on only you, and you'll be the only person able to see it, unless it is something you want to share. But if you want to keep that information private, just make sure you're selecting only you. It'll ask you to turn on activity tracking on your phone. You may already have this turned on. If you don't, it will prompt you to do this. What this does is makes it so your phone turns on its mechanism that will actually do things like count your steps. So that takes account of like movement and can tell you generally speaking these steps you have. Or like as you see on here, it can also count steps when you're running. It can count cycling activity, all sorts of stuff like that. But primarily we're talking about steps, and you need to turn this on if you want it to count your steps for you. So it'll just prompt you to do that. You say turn on, and then there'll be a little message down here that asks you, do you allow the phone to make that change? And you just say allow. So once you've done that, it'll ask you to set your goals. Google Fit has two sort of main measurements that they use when they talk about fitness goals, and one is steps. The other one is this thing called heart points, that is kind of like a certain amount of time that your heart rate is up and, you're doing things that are good for your heart. Your steps are always good for your heart. This is just another way of measuring it. And it might be something that's helpful for you, especially if you're thinking specifically about heart health and how much you want to get your heart rate up every day. That might be another way that you measure your activity. So that's something to consider as well. I'm going to focus primarily on steps. So it's going to ask you to set your activity goals. And you're going to say next, and it'll give you these three options. All right. And you can click whatever of these, and you can always change this as well. And I want to point out, just because 5,000 is the lowest one here does not mean that it takes 5,000 steps for you to get benefits of walking. Like we said before, even doing like 2,300 gets you a lot of benefits. Anything at all gets you benefits, honestly, but 2,300 is where you start really seeing the increase in benefits there. So don't let this intimidate you. Again, like I said, I'll show you how to go in and change that goal if it's something you want to change. And you can change it over time too. So as you get used to walking, as you get to like walking, you can add 500 steps to your goal or 1,000 steps to your goal along the way. Once you do all this, you get to your main screen and it should look something like this. So what you'll see, there's actually a lot of things that this can track. Again, we're focusing mainly on the steps part of it, but you can definitely explore it and see what elements you're interested in tracking. So what you'll see here is this blue ring right here, light blue ring, that's going to be your steps. And the one that's green on the outside is going to be your heart points. So there's the amount of time that your heart rate goes above a certain amount. So this is what it looks like when you haven't done any steps and you haven't done anything. It's just the main first screen. And so once you start walking, what you'll see here is you'll see I have 14 heart points here and I've done 3,631 steps. So it'll give you that information. It'll give you a general sense of how many calories you burned. I wouldn't focus on that too much. Like we've said with Ariel, calories is kind of like an old way of talking about how to gauge nutrition. And I'm not sure that this is particularly accurate for that just in general, because it's not connected to your body. So if you're doing other things, I wouldn't focus on that as a main thing. I think steps is an easier way to sort of count what your activity has been. And then it'll tell you how many miles you've gone. It'll tell you how many minutes you've been moving, all of that. And you'll see too that it'll have these things where it's telling you over time, like what you've done. So if I just start on Monday here, that's my first one. But once I get a week going, I can go back to each of these days and see how many steps and how many points I got then. And so I can compare what I did earlier in the week to what I'm doing now. And that'll just count automatically as you walk. Sometimes you might need to get walking a little bit before it kicks in. So if you're looking straight at the phone while you're walking and it's not going up, it does it in sort of increments and chunks. So don't think that it's not getting counted. You'll see it jump up at some point because it's been counting you along the way. So don't be discouraged by that. Okay, in order to change your step goal, so let's say we wanted to change it, to 6,000. We've been doing 5,000, now we want to do 6,000. We're going to click on this little person in the bottom right-hand corner of our screen. So this is the bottom part of the phone right here. And then it'll say activity goals. So you can click on here for step. You can do heart points too in the exact same way. So click on step, and then you're going to go up or down with the little things. And you can go down as far as you want. You can go up as far as you want. I don't think there's any real limit here. And once you've got it on what you want it to be, you're just going to say set goal. And I wanted to show you one more thing on this. If you are ever in a part of the app and you don't know how to get back to this main screen, like you're in that part where you're resetting the steps or something, and you're like, oh, I don't want to do this, I need to get back to the main screen, you can always hit this one that says home. So the one that looks like those two little inner circles, just hit home to get back to the screen where you can see how many steps you have. All right, so I just wanted to come back to this. So how can you make getting more steps part of your daily life? Try and be consistent about walking every day. That's a big thing because these benefits are sort of, accrued from doing this on a regular basis. So you want to try and walk every day and then increase your steps gradually. You don't need to set a really high goal for yourself and then be like, oh, I didn't reach that goal. So, you can do it over time so that everything is very attainable for you and it's reasonable. Also, work steps into your routines, like both indoors and outdoors. Like I said, you can have your phone in your pocket while you're doing chores and that'll add up some steps. If you're outside, you're running errands, just walk an extra block or something if you can. You can do things like get steps from like dancing around your house, all sorts of different things. So don't think of it as limited to just like, now I'm going to go on a walk for 10 minutes. It's like, no, you're actually moving around, inside your house as well. Les and I also, sometimes if we haven't gotten our steps, we'll run in place at home. So like you can walk in place, you can walk back and forth in your apartment, all sorts of different things. But it doesn't matter. It's like you don't have to be on a walk. You don't have to be, wearing walking shoes, all suited up to go in order to get these benefits. It can be great to realize that it's relatively easy to integrate some of this into your day. Make it fun. If you like nature, go out and you can go on a nature walk, or if you like dancing, dance around your house. There are many ways of doing this. Oh, and I wanted to point out too, again, I just wanted to say, if you're walking with any sort of mobility assistance device, anything like that, that will count too. You've been cleared by your doctors to do physical exercise and you have a walker or something like that, that certainly counts and is probably great for you. I am generally somebody who doesn't want to do something like go to a gym or like do real structured like now I'm exercising, but I love walking and I love getting outside, but I also love, realizing that I'm moving around when I'm inside as well, that it's not just like one or the other, that actually physical activity is part of my day anyway.